Hello. Welcome. Wherever you are right now, I just want you to take a deep breath.
Yeah, just find a comfortable spot. Maybe dim the lights a bit.
Exactly. Let the noise of the day just start to fade away. Settle in, relax. You found your way to our deep dive, which is really just a cozy intellectual wind down before bed.
A quiet journey for the end of the day.
Tonight, we're taking a journey together into the actual architecture of the internet itself. We're going to explore a silent, invisible revolution that is happening right underneath our fingertips.
It really is invisible, but it's massive.
It is. But before we begin, I want to gently remind you that this deep dive is brought to you by the Decoding the Dark YouTube channel. If you enjoy this kind of relaxing, in-depth content to help you unwind and maybe learn something new, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel.
It really helps keep these quiet journeys going for you.
It does. So it's wonderful to be here with you tonight.
And with you. As you get comfortable lying there, let's set the stage for what we're actually exploring tonight. We're looking at a profound architectural shift in how we prove who we are in the digital world.
Right. Because for decades, the entire internet has relied on a fundamentally flawed premise, the shared secret.
But that era is ending. Tonight, we're untangling the rise of Passkeys, the death of the password, and the incredibly complex cryptography that's making it all happen behind the scenes.
And to guide us on this journey, we've gathered a really fascinating stack of technical analyses from the 2025 and 2026 rollouts.
Some really dense material.
Oh, yeah. We're pulling from extensive architecture reports by Corbedo, Auth-Signal, and the FIDO Alliance.
Plus the latest cybersecurity frameworks from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Right. But to make sure we don't just get lost in theoretical math, we're also bringing in raw, unfiltered user feedback from places like Reddit, specifically their tech communities, to see how this is actually playing out in the real world.
Because the theory and the reality are very different things.
They really are. So our mission tonight is to slowly, methodically untangle how these passkeys function. We want to explain the algorithms keeping your data safe, and explore the very real human friction of adopting this new technology. Think of it as a bedtime story about the future of cryptography.
I like that. A bedtime story about math.
Okay, let's unpack this. If the entire internet was built on passwords, why is the tech industry suddenly treating them like a catastrophic vulnerability?
Well, the vulnerability lies in the very nature of a shared secret. When you create an account, you possess a secret string of characters, right?
Your password.
Exactly. And the server you're logging into also has to store a mathematical representation of that exact same secret, usually a cryptographic hash.
So we both know the secret.
Right. And the flaw there is architectural trust. You are trusting a third-party server to perfectly protect its database. But history has shown us that servers are breached constantly.
All the time.
If an attacker gains access to that database, they steal the hash secrets. And because users inevitably reuse these secrets across multiple platforms,
Which we all do. We all use the same password for everything.
a breach at a minor, seemingly unimportant website suddenly compromises their primary email, their banking, their entire digital identity.
The financial fallout from this architectural flaw is honestly hard to wrap your head around. I mean, looking at the 2024 data, the average cost of a credential-related data breach reached $4.88 million per incident.
It's a staggering amount of capital vaporized just because a database of shared secrets was compromised.
But what I find even more unsettling is how these attacks are actually executed today. It's not some lone hacker in a hoodie guessing your pet's name.
No, not anymore.
19% of all daily authentication attempts globally are credential stuffing attacks. Nearly 1 in 5 login attempts on the entire internet is malicious.
Yeah, the sheer scale of credential stuffing is a testament to how industrialized cybercrime has become. These aren't manual attacks. They're orchestrated by massive distributed botnets utilizing advanced AI to completely bypass traditional defenses.
So how do the bots actually do it?
They ingest terabytes of breached credentials, literally billions of username and password pairs, and they systematically hurl them at the login endpoints of major services.
Just constantly trying combinations.
Constantly. They rotate through millions of proxy IP addresses. They intentionally throttle their request rates to mimic human typing speeds.
To fly under the radar.
And they even simulate chaotic mouse movements to fool CAPI CHAs and behavioral firewalls. The bots are ruthlessly efficient. Because human beings reuse passwords, a surprisingly high percentage of these automated login attempts actually succeed. The industry realized that as long as there is a shared secret to steal, there will be an automated industry designed to stuff it.
But wait, didn't we try to solve this with two-factor authentication? I mean, for the last decade, we've been told that if we just add an SMS text code or an authenticator app, we're perfectly safe. Why is the industry suddenly pivoting away from 2FA as the ultimate savior?
Because standard 2FA is no longer considered phishing resistant. SMS texts and time-based one-time passwords, those 6-digit codes on your authenticator app.
Yeah, the ones that refresh every 30 seconds.
Right. Those are essentially just temporary shared secrets. They are still susceptible to interception. Imagine an attacker sets up a proxy website that perfectly mimics your bank's login page.
Yeah, I'm picturing it.
They send you an urgent email, you click the link and type in your password. The proxy site instantly forwards your password to the real bank. The real bank triggers an SMS code to your phone.
So I get a text.
You get a text. The proxy site then asks you for that code. You type it in, the proxy site forwards it to the real bank, and the attacker captures the authenticated session token.
And they're in.
They're in. Furthermore, SMS relies on the telecom infrastructure, specifically the SS7 protocol, which has well-documented vulnerabilities allowing attackers to intercept text messages, or they just use SIM swapping to port your phone number directly to their own device.
Which perfectly explains the massive wave of global regulation we're seeing in the 2025 and 2026 timelines from our sources. Governments and central banks aren't just recommending against SMS anymore, they're outright banning it.
It's a huge regulatory shift.
Huge. The Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates mandated the complete phase-out of SMS and email OTPs for all financial institutions by March 2026. India's Reserve Bank enacted new frameworks doing the exact same thing for digital payment ecosystems.
And the Philippines issued strict directives to their banking sector to abandon any authentication mechanism vulnerable to third-party interception.
And in the U.S., agencies like the FBI and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency have effectively drawn a line in the sand. They're explicitly warning that SMS authentication is a critical vulnerability. It seems the global consensus is that if a human has to read a code and type it in, the system is fundamentally broken.
What's fascinating here is that Passkeys entirely bypass this human vulnerability by removing the shared secret from the equation altogether.
It's completely gone.
Gone. There is no password to type, and there is no temporary code to intercept. For the listener, a passkey is simply a digital key stored on your device. Instead of typing a password, you just use your face with Face ID, your fingerprint with Touch ID, or your device PIN to log in.
So it relies on asymmetric cryptography, operating silently and invisibly between your device and the server.
Exactly. It shifts the burden of proof from a secret you remember to a cryptographic key physically stored in the silicon of your device.
Let's slow down and really look at that architecture. Because our listeners lying there right now are probably already familiar with the broad strokes of public key cryptography. But how does the FIDO2 framework actually implement this to replace passwords completely?
Okay, let's break it down. When you create a passkey, your device generates a unique cryptographic key pair for that specific website.
So it generates a public key and a private key. Let's use an analogy here for the listener. Imagine a puzzle. The website holds the public key, which is like a padlock. And your phone holds the private key, which is the only puzzle piece that actually fits that padlock.
I like that analogy. The public key is sent to the website's server and stored in their database. And it's perfectly safe for this to be public data. If a hacker breaches the server and steals the public key, it's useless to them. Because a public key can only verify a signature, it cannot create one.
Right. It's just an open padlock.
Yes. The private key, however, is the crown jewel. It is generated inside the hardware-secure enclave of your device. That's a physically isolated subsystem on your phone or laptop's processor.
And it never leaves that secure enclave.
It never leaves. It is mathematically impossible to guess the private key from the public key.
So if the private key never leaves the phone's hardware, how do the phone and the server actually communicate to prove it's you? Let's walk through the mechanics of that invisible handshake. When you attempt to log in, the server doesn't ask for a password. Instead, it issues a challenge.
Right. It sends a randomly generated string of cryptographic bytes, known as a nonce.
A nonce.
Yes, a number used only once. This nonce is crucial to preventing replay attacks. The server sends this random challenge down to your device. Now, your device's operating system needs to ask the secure enclave to sign this challenge using the private key.
But the enclave won't just do this automatically.
Yeah.
It requires local user verification.
This is where you, the user, interact with the system. You scan your face, use your fingerprint, or enter your device PN. This biometric check doesn't go to the internet. It strictly stays on your device, simply giving the secure enclave the localized permission it needs to act.
And once it has that permission, the math takes over. The secure enclave uses an algorithm to cryptographically sign the server's random challenge. The 2026 NIST guidelines specifically highlight the use of elliptic curve cryptography for this, particularly the ECDSA algorithm using the SEC256R1 curve or the EDDSA algorithm.
Those are the standards, yes.
For you lying there listening, imagine a vast, complex curve plotted on a massive mathematical graph. The algorithm takes the server's challenge and your private key, and essentially bounces a point across this curve millions of times in a highly specific deterministic pattern.
That's a great way to visualize it. The resulting coordinate on that curve is your digital signature. Because of the mathematical properties of elliptic curves, it is computationally straightforward for the server to take your public key and verify that the signature is valid, and that it could only have been produced by the corresponding private key.
But, and this is the genius of asymmetric cryptography, it is computationally infeasible for an attacker to look at the signature and the public key and try to reverse engineer the curve to find your private key.
It would take modern supercomputers thousands of years to calculate.
So the device sends this newly calculated signature back to the server. The server runs the verification using the public key it has on file. The math checks out and you're logged in. And because the original challenge was a random, single-use nonce, even if a hacker intercepted your signature while it was traveling across the internet, they couldn't use it. If they try to send that same signature 5 seconds later, the server will reject it, because it's already expecting a completely new signature for a completely new nonce.
The phishing proxy attack we talked about earlier becomes mathematically impossible.
Precisely. And for this elegant mathematical dance to function seamlessly across billions of devices and millions of websites, the industry relies on two foundational standards:
WebAuthn and CTAP2.
Right. Briefly, WebAuthn is web authentication. That is the browser's language to talk to the website. It dictates exactly how Chrome, Safari, or Firefox communicates with the server to request and deliver these cryptographic challenges.
And second is CTAT2, the client to authenticator protocol. This is the localized language your browser uses to talk to the physical authenticator, whether that's the secure enclave on your phone or a USB security key plugged into your laptop. Together, WebAuthn and CTAP2 create a universal bridge between web infrastructure and secure hardware.
But hold on, I want to push back on something here. If the entire premise of this mathematical fortress relies on the private key being prominently physically locked inside the hardware of your specific iPhone, what happens if you drop that iPhone into a river?
The river scenario.
Yeah. If the key can never leave the device, aren't you just permanently locked out of your entire digital life? Doesn't this create a massive, terrifying, single point of failure for the user?
You've just identified the exact friction point that caused the tech industry to diverge passkeys into two distinct architectural paths: synced passkeys and device-bound passkey.
Okay.
You're entirely correct that tying a single private key to a single fragile piece of consumer electronics is an unacceptable risk for the general public. To solve this, Apple, Google, Microsoft, and third-party credential providers like 1Password introduced synced passkeys.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does a synced passkey actually work without violating the rule that a private key shouldn't be exposed?
When a synced passkey is generated, the private key material is still created securely. However, instead of being permanently locked to that single processor, the operating system encrypts the private key using a high-entropy key derived from your central account, like your Apple ID or Google account.
Okay, so it wraps it up.
Yes. This encrypted blob is then uploaded to their respective cloud infrastructure, such as iCloud Keychain or Google Password Manager, and synchronized across your other trusted devices.
Wait, so Apple and Google have a database full of everyone's private keys. Doesn't that just recreate the exact same shared secret server vulnerability we're trying to escape?
It's a vital distinction. They hold the keys, but they do not hold the decryption material. The synchronization utilizes end-to-end encryption. The keys are encrypted locally on your device before they ever touch the network, using cryptographic material that only your authorized devices possess.
Oh, I see.
Even if a rogue engineer at Apple or a highly sophisticated state-sponsored hacker breached the iCloud Keychain servers and downloaded the entire database of synced passkeys, they would only have unintelligible encrypted ciphertexts. They cannot access your private keys.
So this system provides what NIST classifies as Authenticator Assurance Level 2, or AL2.
Correct. It offers robust phishing resistance and incredibly high user convenience. It completely eliminates the fear of dropping your phone in the river. You simply buy a new phone, log into your iCloud account, the encrypted blogs sync down, your local device decrypts them, and your passkeys are restored.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a pragmatic compromise for everyday consumers. But if that's AL2, what does the higher standard AAL3 look like? Because I assume if you're administering a critical national infrastructure grid or accessing a core banking mainframe, relying on an Apple ID password to protect the sync fabric of your passkeys isn't going to cut it.
Not at all. For those highly sensitive, mission-critical environments, the industry mandates device-bound passkeys. This is the uncompromising, mathematically rigorous implementation of the FODO2 standard.
The hardware vault.
The hardware vault. A device-bound passkey is generated directly on a physical hardware token, like a YubiKey, or explicitly flagged within a laptop's trusted platform module as strictly non-exportable. The private key material physically cannot be extracted, backed up, or synchronized to the cloud. It lives and dies on that specific piece of silicon.
So in that scenario, if you drop your YubiKey in the river, you truly are locked out.
Yes. In enterprise IT, this is managed by requiring users to register multiple redundant hardware keys and store them in physical safes. It entirely sacrifices the convenience of cloud recovery to achieve the absolute highest cryptographic certainty of physical possession.
Right, because an attacker cannot compromise your credentials remotely by tricking a cloud recovery process. They would have to physically break into your house, steal the specific USB key, and somehow acquire the physical peon to unlock it.
Exactly. It is the gold standard for high assurance scenarios.
It's a fascinating division of labor in the architecture. Synced passkeys for everyday life, device-bound passkeys for the fortresses. But as I'm thinking about the reality of interacting with all our different screens, there's another logistical nightmare here. Let's say I'm lying in bed, just like you, the listener, and I turn on my smart TV. Or I put on an XR virtual reality headset.
The cross-device dance?
Yeah. These devices don't have built-in fingerprint scanners, and typing a complex password with a TV remote is an agonizing experience. If my private keys are securely synced to my phone, how on earth do I securely log into my TV?
The FIDO Alliance solved this using a remarkably clever protocol known as hybrid transport. It utilizes the hardware you already have, your smartphone, to authenticate the device that lacks secure inputs. When you attempt to log into an app on your smart TV, the TV displays a QR code on the screen.
Right, and I take out my phone and scan the code. But how is that secure? Couldn't a hacker in another country send me a picture of a QR code on Discord, tell me to scan it, and trick my phone into signing a login challenge for their computer?
That is exactly the threat model the engineers anticipated. To prevent remote relay attacks, the hybrid transport protocol doesn't just rely on the internet to pass the challenge. It requires a localized proximity check using Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE.
Oh, because Bluetooth has a super short range.
Precisely. When you scan that QR code on the TV, your phone and the TV establish a brief BLE handshake. Bluetooth physically cannot travel thousands of miles. It has a range of a few meters. This BLE handshake cryptographically proves to the server that your smartphone is in the exact same physical airspace as the smart TV requesting the login.
That is brilliant. It uses the physical limitations of radio waves as a security feature.
Once that physical proximity is verified via Bluetooth, the TV routes the cryptographic challenge, the random nonce we discussed earlier, through the internet to your phone. Your phone prompts you for your Face ID. You look at your phone, the secure enclave signs the challenge, and your phone sends the signature back to the TV.
And the TV hands it to the server. And instantly, you're logged into the app on your television, having never touched the remote control.
It is an incredibly elegant, frictionless solution for the expanding ecosystem of XR headsets, smart home hubs, and gaming consoles.
The math and the protocols are undeniably a triumph of engineering. They are structurally sound and theoretically perfect. But as we slowly pivot into the next phase of our journey tonight, we have to confront a harsh reality. Perfect cryptography often collides catastrophically with human psychology.
It really does.
And this is where we need to slow down and look at the actual human experience, because the transition over the last few years has been incredibly messy. We need to keep the tone empathetic here, because while the math is perfect, the human experience is currently a struggle.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that the friction doesn't lie in the elliptic curves. It lies entirely in the human-computer interaction. The user experience has, in many cases, been highly disjointed.
To really understand this, we're looking at a deeply insightful, highly upvoted thread from the Passkeys community on Reddit. A user named High Oscillation wrote a breakdown titled, "The 5 Reasons Passkeys Are So Frustrating."
It's a great post.
Reading through it, you can acutely feel the anxiety and the cognitive dissonance this rollout has caused for regular people. The first major disconnect they highlight is the tech industry's hardware-centric view versus the consumer's data-centric view.
Yes, this is a profound psychological barrier. For a security engineer at Google or Apple, tying an identity to a cryptographic hardware enclave makes perfect logical sense. It is mathematically secure. But to the average consumer, hardware is utterly disposable.
People drop their phones, they shatter screens, they leave laptops on trains all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Consumers don't care about the silicon. They care about their data, their photos, their emails, their financial access. When you tell a user, your identity is now tied to this physical phone, you aren't giving them peace of mind. You are giving them massive, looming anxiety that breaking their phone means permanently losing their digital life.
Even with synced passkeys, the abstraction of how the keys are stored creates an inherent distrust of the system.
And that anxiety is fiercely compounded by the second and third points in the Reddit thread, dealing with what they call platform contention.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about WebAuthn being the language of the browser and CTAP2 being the language of the operating system. But what happens when big tech ecosystems refuse to play nicely with each other? Let's say you're working on an Apple Mac computer, but you prefer using the Google Chrome browser.
Very common setup.
Chrome has its own built-in password manager linked to your Google account. macOS has iCloud Keychain linked to your Apple ID. When a website requests a passkey, the user suddenly finds themselves in a chaotic turf war.
It creates an incredibly jarring user interface collision. The user on Reddit cited a specific example with LinkedIn. They had originally generated a passkey for LinkedIn on their Android phone, saving it to their Google Password Manager. Later, they sat down at their Mac, opened Chrome, and tried to log in. The website sent the WebAuthn request. Suddenly, macOS intercepted the request at the system level, sliding down a sleek prompt asking for Touch ID to use an iCloud passkey.
Which didn't exist for that site.
Right. And simultaneously, Chrome generated an overlay asking the user to scan a QR code with their Android phone. The two tech stacks collided, the authentication flow stalled out, and the user was left staring at a frozen screen, completely blocked from their account.
It's a nightmare for usability. When the underlying systems don't communicate fluidly, the user just feels stupid, even though it's an engineering failure. Which brings us to the fourth reason, and honestly, the most dangerous one: the deletion trap.
The deletion trap.
Imagine a user gets so frustrated with all these competing pop-ups that they decide, you know what, I'm done with passkeys, I just want my password back. So they go into the settings on their iPhone, find the passkeys list, and delete the key for that website.
And that is where the architecture fails the user. By deleting the key locally on their device, they have destroyed the private key. However, they didn't go into their account settings on the actual website to revoke it.
So the website server still has the public key on file, and the server's database still says this account strictly requires a passkey to log in.
Now they're trapped in a digital purgatory. They try to log into the website. The server demands a passkey signature. The device no longer has the private key to sign it. The user can't log in to turn off the passkey requirement, and they can't use the passkey to log in.
They are entirely locked out of their own account, usually resulting in a grueling, days-long account recovery process with customer support.
This is exactly why we must distinguish between cryptographic success and user experience failure. We can see this vividly illustrated in a real-world case study from the Corbeto Architecture Report. A major Japanese securities firm decided to mandate passkeys for all their clients.
Right. They wanted to eliminate the risk of phishing for high-value financial portfolios. From a strict security standpoint, it was a logical move.
But the reality of the rollout was absolute chaos. Let's really look at this because the details are wild. This wasn't a tech startup with early adopters. This was a traditional financial firm. The morning they flipped the switch and mandated passkeys, thousands of users, many of them older, using slightly older devices, tried to log into their portfolios. Users running specific variations of Android 14 encountered a catastrophic UI failure.
Instead of a helpful biometric prompt, their screen simply displayed an opaque, brutalist error code, error M0902, or a completely blank modal that just said, "Operation interrupted."
There was no context, no fallback option, and no localized explanation of what M0902 meant. It was a raw system error bleeding through to the front-end interface. The psychological impact of this on a user trying to access their life savings cannot be overstated. Panic set in immediately.
It was so severe that people didn't just call the firm's support line. They literally started calling local neighborhood IT support shops. The report notes that frantic users were paying 7,700 yen, about $50 for technicians to physically drive to their houses, look at their phones, and try to decode error M0902 just so they could access their money.
That is the definition of a catastrophic user experience. When a security protocol requires a paid IT house call to understand, the technology has failed the human.
The Corbedo analysis identifies this as the friction delta. The experience of adopting this technology is not uniform. It varies wildly depending on your hardware, your operating system, and your browser combination.
Right, Apple has made it pretty seamless.
Apple, operating a tightly controlled vertical ecosystem, has integrated Passkeys seamlessly. For an iOS user within the Safari browser, creating and using a passkey is practically invisible, just a smooth 1-second Face ID animation. But step outside that walled garden, try to use a third-party security key on a Windows machine through an outdated browser, and the process is buried under confusing system warnings, secondary menus, and obscure PIN requests.
This vast disparity makes it impossible to write standardized, simple instructions for the general public. One of the commenters on that Reddit thread summed up the exhaustion perfectly. They were talking about helping their spouse navigate the transition. They quoted their wife, who finally just threw her hands up and said, "I am so incredibly sick of needing to install another app or scan another code to do everything. Whatever passkeys are, they just locked me out of my Amazon account and I needed your help to fix the problem. Get rid of them now, please."
When the technology built to invisibly protect you ends up feeling like a labyrinth keeping you out, adoption is going to hit a brick wall.
It's a deeply humbling lesson for the industry. Engineering perfect cryptography in a vacuum is easy. Deploying it to billions of chaotic, anxious humans is the real challenge. However, the architectural shifts we are seeing in the 2025 and 2026 guidelines suggest that the major platforms have absorbed this painful feedback.
They are moving away from forcing the user to understand the technology towards silently fixing the infrastructure around them.
And that brings us to the horizon, the final phase of our deep dive tonight, fixing the future. How is the industry actively repairing this incredibly bumpy road? Because they aren't giving up on the math, they're just changing the delivery. One of the most elegant solutions detailed in our sources is a new WebAuthn feature called conditional creation.
I look at this as the era of silent upgrades. In the early days, websites would aggressively interrupt your workflow with a jarring pop-up saying, "Do you want to create a passkey?" And because users didn't know what that meant, they aggressively clicked, "Not now."
Conditional creation fundamentally changes that interaction. It utilizes the browser's autofill APIs to work entirely in the background. The next time you visit a website and type in your old vulnerable password, the website's server silently queries your browser via WebAuthn. It essentially whispers, "Is this device capable of storing a passkey?"
If your device says yes, the server accepts your password, logs you in, but simultaneously sends in the challenge to generate a passkey in the background.
So it's completely frictionless. Your operating system silently generates the public and private key pair, encrypts the private key into your iCloud or Google Password Manager, and sends the public key back to the server. You, the user, don't have to click through confusing menus or make technical decisions. You might just see a subtle, non-intrusive banner from your browser letting you know a passkey was saved.
The next time you visit that site, instead of prompting for a password, your keyboard will simply suggest a biometric scan. You've been upgraded to asymmetric cryptography without ever lifting a finger.
It removes the cognitive load from the user completely. But perhaps more importantly, the industry is finally addressing that terrifying deletion trap we discussed, where deleting a key on your phone leaves you locked out on the server. To solve this state mismatch, they're rolling out the Signal API.
I really want to dig into how the Signal API actually works in the background, because maintaining state across millions of independent devices and servers seems incredibly difficult. I think of the Signal API as a diligent digital housekeeper.
It's a very apt metaphor. The Signal API establishes a standardized communication channel between the relying party, which is the website's server, and the passkey provider, which is your Apple or Google Wallet. Previously, these two entities didn't talk to each other about the lifecycle of the credential.
Right. But now, if you go into your account settings on the website and decide to delete your passkey there, the website server uses the Signal API to send an authenticated ping to your device's operating system. It tells your wallet, "The user revoked this credential on our end. Please permanently delete the local private key."
And it works in reverse too, right? If I delete the passkey locally on my phone, does the phone tell the server?
This is where it gets highly technical regarding privacy boundaries. Devices generally resist sending unsolicited pings to servers to prevent tracking. However, the Signal API allows the server to query the status during the next interaction or during routine credential hygiene checks. If the server recognizes the key is no longer valid locally, it drops the requirement.
That's brilliant.
Furthermore, if you delete your entire account on a website, the server signals your wallet to wipe the lingering, now useless private keys, preventing your device from becoming a graveyard of dead cryptographic material. It weaves a cohesive, self-cleaning safety net.
Seeing these invisible upgrades, the conditional creation, the housekeeping APIs, the trajectory in these 2026 reports becomes crystal clear. The tech giants aren't just trying to patch passwords. They are aiming for a state known as true passwordless.
The ultimate goal.
This is a fundamental redesign of the entire identity lifecycle. In a true passwordless architecture, the concept of a shared secret doesn't even exist on day one. When you sign up for a new banking app or a new social network, the interface doesn't even offer you a password field. You are enrolled with a secure enclave passkey from the very first millisecond.
True passwordless also demands an architectural overhaul of account recovery. If we eliminate passwords, we must also eliminate the phishable SMS text message as a fallback. Organizations are building highly resilient recovery flows utilizing secondary hardware passkeys, secure offline backup codes, or integrating with verified digital identities. But the most sophisticated aspect of this true passwordless vision is the integration of continuous behavioral biometric analysis.
What continuous behavioral biometrics? Does that mean the system is constantly watching how I use my device?
In a privacy-preserving manner, yes. To combat the highly advanced AI bots executing credential stuffing, the architecture doesn't just authenticate you once at the login screen. It continuously monitors the telemetry of your interaction.
What kind of telemetry?
It analyzes the micro-rhythms of how you type on your keyboard, the unique arc and acceleration of your mouse movements, the angle at which you hold your phone, and the pressure of your touchscreen taps. A botnet, no matter how advanced, struggles to perfectly replicate the analog, chaotic subtleties of human physics.
So even if an attacker somehow hijacks an authenticated session, the system's behavioral analysis would instantly recognize that the cadence of interaction has changed from human to machine and silently terminate the connection.
Exactly. It is a multi-layered dynamic defense that completely abandons static secrets.
It is a stunning, almost dizzying vision for the future of the internet. And we are living right in the middle of this messy, fascinating transition period. As we begin to gently wrap up our deep dive tonight, I want to take a moment to look back at the journey we've just taken together. We started by looking at the deep fragility of the password, the shared secrets that are constantly being stolen, hashed, and stuffed by automated AI bots, costing the global economy millions and compromising our digital lives.
We then explored the elegant, mathematically perfect puzzle of asymmetric cryptography. We saw how elliptic curve algorithms allow your device to securely prove your identity without ever exposing the private key, utilizing the WebAuthn and CTAP2 protocols to sign random challenges.
We delineated the incredible multi-device convenience of iCloud and Google synced passkeys against the absolute fortress-like security of device-bound hardware tokens.
And we didn't shy away from the human friction. We explored the deep anxieties users feel when operating systems contend with each other, when cryptic error codes offer no help, and when the fear of losing disposable hardware makes the technology feel more like a trap than a shield.
But we also saw the hope on the horizon. The silent background upgrades, the housekeeping APIs, and a unified push toward a true passwordless ecosystem that protects us invisibly, utilizing continuous behavioral analysis to outsmart the bots. The next time you pick up your phone and unlock an app with just a brief glance at your screen, I want you to remember that you aren't just logging in. You are actively participating in a massive global cryptographic shift. You are holding a private key that is fundamentally rewiring the security architecture of the internet.
As we prepare to sign off, there's one final, deeply provocative thought I would like to leave you with, something to mull over as you drift off to sleep tonight. In the latest architectural documents from the FIDO Alliance, there is an extensive discussion about the next evolutionary step, merging passkeys with verifiable digital credentials, or VDCs. The European Union is already rolling out EU digital identity wallets based entirely on this framework. This raises an important question.
Oh, this is the part of the research that really kept me thinking.
If our cryptographic passkeys fully merge with verifiable digital credentials, it means our hardware-secure enclaves won't just log us into our email or our streaming accounts. It means our phones will cryptographically carry our legal, government-issued identity. With a single Face ID scan, your device could mathematically prove your driver's license, your passport, your age, and your citizenship to any server on the web.
It creates a unified, absolutely frictionless, mathematically perfect digital identity.
But the question we must ponder as a society is this. If every single digital action we take, every website we visit, every comment we post is cryptographically bound to our verified, real-world legal identity at the hardware level, do we gain ultimate perfect security at the inevitable cost of our digital anonymity? It is a profound philosophical trade-off between absolute safety and the freedom of being untraceable in the digital world.
That is a deeply fascinating, heavy thought to end the night on. The balance between being perfectly secure and perfectly visible. As you lie there in the quiet, let your mind gently wander over the invisible math protecting you right now and the future shape of your digital self. We hope you've enjoyed this expansive journey with us and that it has helped you unwind, relax, and learn something new. One final gentle reminder that this deep dive was brought to you by the Decoding the Dark YouTube channel. Please leave a like and subscribe if you found this peaceful and informative. From both of us here, thank you so much for listening, and we wish you a very good night.